Hello crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I am here with a project for the Newton's Nook Designs blog. This post will be up over on the blog today, and I will be sure to share a link to the products. I am featuring both of the brand new stamp sets for April, the Tag Sampler stamp set, and Winston's Honeybees, which is our new 4x4 size stamp set. I am going to just start by stamping a few tags onto this 110-pound Recollections cardstock, and I will be stamping in My Favorite Things Black Licorice Hybrid ink. I find this to be a great all-over, all-purpose black ink because you can use it with a variety of coloring mediums. Today, though, I'm just going to be using Distress ink, and so you could pretty much use any ink over that. Although I will be sure to dry this ink completely before I add any of the Distress ink, just because I don't want any of the black blending into the yellow that I will be using. So I'm going to use the Winston Honeybees to decorate the tags. I'm using the Just Because sentiment. These tags will be going on a little treat bag, and so I thought that was a great simple sentiment so that I could use them anytime that someone I knew needed some encouragement. And I am stamping these in the VersaFine Onyx Black ink because I will be doing some embossing over them. I'll be using clear embossing powder with this VersaFine ink because the VersaFine ink is already sticky, and so it will give the effect of black embossing powder. When I started, I thought that I would just have one bee and the sentiment on the tags. However, I decided to go back later and add more. And so it doesn't really matter whether you do the embossing first or second, because the embossing is going to resist the distress inks. The reason to do the embossing would be to just make sure that the blacks stay a little bit more crisp, and if you were to add ink over stamping without the embossing, it might fade it a little bit. For today's application of ink, I am going to be using these stencil brushes from Martha Stewart rather than my Distress ink blending tool. I liked the texture that I was seeing different people get with stencil brushes. I did not invest in the most expensive stencil brushes. Instead, I just went to Michael's to see what they had and used a coupon. And I was able to pick up this whole pack for just a couple of dollars. And I liked that it added a little bit different of a look to applying the ink. Rather than getting solid patches of ink or a solid blended surface, you get a lot of texture from the ends of the brush. And I took advantage of that texture on a card for Mint Owl Studio recently. So you could go over to their channel and check that out as well, because it was a fun way to color in some flowers and you can really get a feel for the texture there. But basically this gives you these little spots of ink all over, rather than a solid ink blending look. And it's just something a little bit different. I use distress inks and distressing blending so much that it's fun to have just a slightly different way to apply it. And I don't feel like it creates as many splotches as I get sometimes when I am doing it with the blending tool. And it works really well on this cardstock. I have a bit of a hard time with this thick cardstock on the distressing blending tool, whereas it worked really well with the stencils. And you can see the texture a little bit more here as they have dried somewhat. Once I had dried off the tags and die cut them with the coordinating dies, I realized that I wanted to fill the space a little bit more. These coordinating dies that match the Tag Sampler stamp set, not sure why that word is so hard for me today, also coordinate with the Holiday Tag stamp set. So you get one die to use with two stamp sets. So that's a fun thing that Jennifer kind of planned out for you, so you get that double value out of it. And you do want to make sure that your tag is completely dry before you try to add any more embossing, because if your background is wet, the embossing powder is going to stick all over it. In this case, that's not such a big deal, because if anything, it will just add a little bit of shine if you get some clear embossing where you don't want it. But if you are using a colored embossing powder, or for example the black embossing, you would definitely want to make sure that the stray powder doesn't get in those other places. So once I had that done, I still wanted a little bit more pizzazz. I started these tags really simple, but just kept wanting to add one other thing and one other thing. And so I decided to add some glimmer spray. and I just shook up the bottle so that all of the glimmer, instead of being stuck there on the bottom, was spread throughout the bottle. That's very important when using those shimmer sprays, because if you just spray it without shaking it up, you're not going to get that glimmer look. You really have to make sure it's well shooken up, and always turn the bottle over and see if there's anything stuck on it. And then it adds just a little bit of shine. Again, the black embossing is going to resist that spray, and so you'll get those black images still saying really, really clear. Whereas if you had sprayed over a black stamping, instead it would be much more faded now. So I thought that a fun treat to pair with this bee stamp set would be some Bitto honey. If you wanted a non-candy treat, something like Burt's Bees lip balm, I used a honey lip balm from Nivea last week when I did a little treat case with this same stamp set. However, this is just a fun little pick-me-up. I think that it would be great for co-workers, or somebody you know who helps you out, like maybe like maybe a babysitter or a friend who did you a favor, a neighbor who, does something small for you. And then to top it off, I wanted to tie the tags onto the treat bag. And these are just clear cellophane bags. You could use clear zip top bags. And I am going to use this orange and white twine that will be familiar to any Newton's Nook fans, because this is the little bit of twine that your packages, your Newton's Nook stamps, are tied together with. So you don't have to throw that out. I'm sure nobody does, but it is definitely useful still, and so I repurposed it to tie these tags on because the orange color paired so well. The oranges and yellows that I used for distressings, I believe, was squeezed lemonade, the mustard seed, and the wild honey for that orange towards the bottom. And basically all I'm doing is just tying this into a bow the way that you would tie a shoelace. I don't do any sort of fancy things with my bows. A shoelace tie generally does the trick. And so that is it for my little tag and treat bag today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you are interested in more crafting tutorials, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Check the link in the video description below to head on over to the Newton's Nook blog or to check out the products that I used. Thanks for watching. Bye.